Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I'm sorry that I've been a bit absent from this for the past 3 weeks. I'm sure you've all missed me greatly. But I'm back, and I'm with one of my colleagues today, Mr. Paul Chute. Paul, say hello to everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Always got a good joke here at Refract. Right, okay, so today, what we're going to be doing, as per usual, is breaking down a real call. And the reason I brought on Mr. Paul Chute is Paul was the guy who actually made this call. So this is super relevant. We've got the person who can bring his own perspectives and thoughts on the call that took place. This took place about last week, so really, really relevant call. As usual, if you work with anybody as part of a team, I'm sure you're all working from home still and probably forgotten what some of your teammates look like. If you think they'd get value from watching this broadcast, where we're going to be breaking down a real call, which in the call, Paul gets the dreaded not interested objection in this call. So if you've got people on your team who make cold calls, who deal with getting told that they're not interested by their prospects, tag them in the comments so they can see that this broadcast is taking place. This is going to be about 20-25 minutes of learning, but based on real conversations, not hypothetical theory and stuff that you just see on LinkedIn and someone's post. This is actually, we're going to be listening to a real call, and we're going to be breaking it down together. We're going to figure out stuff that went well, stuff that didn't go so well, and stuff that we could do differently next time. And as always, please pop in the comments as well your own opinions and thoughts as we go through this, and I'll ask a couple of questions. We do not have all the answers here at Refract. We all still try and figure out the best way and try and get better each week. And so super interested to hear as you put in the comments anything that you would have done differently. Paul, so why don't we just, before we jump into the actual call itself, why don't you just give a little bit of a introduction? You know, you haven't been with Refract for that long in the grand scheme of things, but what would you say has been some of the biggest benefits that you've received as a salesperson in being able to, you know, have your calls listened to, critique, broken down? Share that with the audience.
Yeah, so I've been with Refract around about 12 months now. Before moving to Refract, I've always worked in sales. I ran my own business as well. But prior to coming to Refract, I've never, ever had any sales coaching before, especially never had any call coaching. I found that really, really beneficial. Just having the ability to review your calls, go back, see what you could do differently, and also get feedback from the rest of the team as well and the sales leaders here. It's something that I've not had before in my career, and I think that that has really, really led to a big improvement over the last 12 months for me.
Yeah, you make an interesting point there. Like Paul, we're both, you know, on the older age of the spectrum. Let's be honest. You've ran your own business. You've, you know, made calls all your life, but you've never had anybody kind of teach you or show you the way. A lot of it's just kind of working it out as you go along. And I think that's the case for many people, and many people watching this. You know, this is a great question to ask the audience. If you would classify yourself as largely self-taught when it comes to prospecting and sales, just put in the comments the word self-taught. I'm really curious to see how many people will say that's how they've learned versus having any sort of formal coaching or training. But it's definitely worth me saying, everybody, that like Paul Chute is somebody who embraces coaching and feedback. Like I see firsthand the stuff that he actually learns and puts into practice. And that's the difference, because you can watch these videos, you can read as many sales books as you like, you can read as much content on LinkedIn as you wish, but until you actually put that stuff into practice, you might as well have never learned it in the first place. And Paul is a shining example of someone who actually tries this stuff out. And I've actually learned some stuff as well personally by listening to some things that Paul does, and works. You know, that's how we all learn and get better in sales. So, let's get straight into it. So, again, the theme of this call, why I was so interested, I typed into Refract, show me all calls where the phrase "not interested" was mentioned, and it chucked up this call recently. So, this is a really interesting objection. So, first of all, please, I'd like to just ask the question to the audience: is of all the objections that you face when you make cold calls, what's the objection you fear the most? Obviously, we're going to be talking about not interested here, which could be a good candidate, but I want to see in the chat, please put in here, what's the objection that you're like, oh god, if that one comes up in a call, that's the one that I least want to hear. Paul, while we're waiting for some of those comments to come in, what about you personally? I mean, maybe this is the one, but what's the one that you find to be most impactful?
I think not interested is one I fear quite a lot, because at the end of the day, when you're ringing somebody, you want them to be interested in what you're saying. You've built yourself up to do the call. You've picked up the phone. You want them to be interested and to actually listen to what you're saying. So I think this is probably my biggest one.
Yeah, I'd say the same. It's kind of like, it's almost the emotional feeling of when you get someone to say, I'm not interested. It's like, where do I go from here? Like, how can you take someone who says they're not interested to being interested? It's one of the hardest things. James Ross says, we're giving the property to our kids. Yes, I'd say that's definitely one that we'd fear. Tim Owen, I don't have time right now and I'm in a meeting. Yeah, like classic, busy, I'm busy. Alex Hoppenbrowers, hello Alex, good to see you on here. I think we're too early in our journey for this. People who say, listen, I think in summary, this is just bad timing. We're way off even needing to look at this. Everyone's got their own objections that they get fearful the most. I would say, I agree with you, Paul. When I hear this is the one that I kind of like, oh, it feels the biggest brick wall out of any out there. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump straight into this. And I'm gonna play the call bit by bit. I'm gonna stop the tape, start the tape. We're gonna talk about it. And again, we've already got that covered. There's another one from Tom Parsons. Right, but what we're gonna do, as we're gonna play the tape, I want people to provide their thoughts and feedback in the comments as we go through this. And this is what real coaching is all about. It's not hypothetical. Actually coaching on the reality, what actually happens. And so here we go. So I'm just going to start the call, and I'm going to pause it, and then we're going to come in and talk about it. So here we go.
My name's Paul, coming from a company called Refract. To be completely honest, we've never spoken, but from one sales professional to another, can I take 35 seconds to explain why I've called today?
Yeah. Right. Okay. So let's just stop there. So heard Paul's opening. There was almost like a 2-second period there where I was thinking, is the prospect actually there? And he gives a very, very sort of low key. Yep. Right. First of all, I'm gonna talk about, first of all, what I really loved about this opening, and this is one that, Paul, you would have. I mean, you've kind of learned as you've been here at Refract. In fact, I'm going to ask you, what is it about that opening, if you want to talk through what you're doing there, that you feel like when you're giving that opening specifically, why do you think that works as far as getting people to kind of say, yes, let's talk?
Yeah. Obviously, when you're cold calling somebody, is an interruption to their day. So what I'm trying to do there is to interrupt them, but in a way that gets them on your side, gives you a little bit more time. So being honest and upfront with them, telling them that we haven't spoken before, and then asking them for 35 seconds to, I mean, who's not going to give you 35 seconds? It's very, very rare that line doesn't work. So that's why I use it so much, really.
Yeah.
And then just waiting, really pausing and waiting until they acknowledge that and they give you that 35 seconds, rather than just going straight into what you're going to say to them.
And do you know what? It's a very small thing, but you almost sat there in silence for 2 seconds. I think a lot of salespeople, that silence would have been too much for them to handle. It's uncomfortable when people don't respond almost straight away. And the fact that you just sit there and you say, I'm going to sit here and wait until this guy acknowledges and responds. But what you're hearing there is actually he's processing what you're just saying. Because you've used such an unusual opening, it sounds very different to every other kind of opening sales call. And when you get people just to stop and think for a few seconds, it becomes harder for them to just say, no, get me off the phone straight away. They almost feel like they've come to a conclusion where the only thing they can say is go ahead. Greg Richardson says, great opener. Only part I would change is the completely honest part. Could indicate that you aren't always honest. It's a fair comment.
Yeah.
It's a fair comment. You could say to be totally upfront, but at the same time, this works for us, doesn't it? It does work for us. And sometimes that brutal honesty is the thing that gets people on side straight out the gate. The other thing I was going to just ask you about is his reaction. What did you feel when you heard his say, yep, okay? What did you feel when you heard that? Because it was interesting how he said it.
Yeah, it was a very reluctant sort of yes. He didn't really engage much, did he? I think going into the next part of the call, I thought I'm going to have to grab his attention somehow, because he doesn't seem very interested in what I've got to say at the moment. He has given me that time, so it was trying to use that well, really, and get him interested in the call.
Because he was very downbeat with his answer, did that, and it's hard to obviously remember these things, but trying to put yourself back, did you feel like when you heard how downbeat he was with his response, it wasn't somebody who said, yeah, Paul, sure, go ahead. It was, yep, okay. Did that make you feel like you would do anything, or the next things that you say would be any different, either your tonality, what you were going to say, or did it not have any impact or effect on you at all?
I think you'd be lying if you said it didn't have any impact. I think a little part of you thinks it's not going well already, which so you've got to try and get the call back on track, maybe. I can't really remember with this one, but I think that if it happened again now, I think that's definitely what I'd be thinking. Yeah,
for sure. I think you're right. Like anybody, when you hear someone downbeat, then that can have an impact on you. You're like, oh, this person just feels cold. This isn't going to be the easiest conversation in the world. Mm-hmm. Just to ask the audience, when you hear someone who has a more of a downbeat tone when they answer the phone, someone who kind of just sounds reluctant to talk to you, does that change your course of direction of how you take the call? Please put in your comments if like how you hear the person respond, whether that changes the course of direction you take. Alex asked a great question. You're saying, would you recommend mirroring tonality, going with an upbeat tonality despite their response? Alex is almost like 2 steps ahead of me here, which is a great question. And actually, I think, Paul, in my opinion, when you've got someone here who sounds quite downbeat, there's a very careful balance here. If you go in super excitable, you run the risk of like annoying this person. You can tell you're almost clashing with their personality type. At the same time, if you're downbeat, it's that careful balance of not sounding downbeat, so you kind of sound like an unenthusiastic, that you lack passion in what you do. But I think it's just you definitely have to adjust your tone to be more mellow. I think it's about personality styles, and I think this is what you do generally pretty well in the next part of your call. You can tell how you adjust your tonality down to kind of match with his. So this is how you sound as you go into your call pitch. So here we go.
Okay, appreciate it, Charles. I was researching the VR 300 list, and I work with sales leaders of technology firms, high-performing sales teams, but despite their success, they still encounter a couple of key challenges. Just wanted to run these past you and see if this is something you're bumping into.
Okay, so as you can see there, I think you did adjust your tonality to kind of match where he is without sounding like you were down in the dumps. So I think you nailed that. The one thing I was going to just query here is like what I thought you did really well is you referenced, I've been researching this set of companies. However, it didn't feel like there was a connection between that opening and what you said next. I wasn't sure whether like what you would have maybe done next time if you were gonna do that again.
Yeah, I think if I remember rightly, I think that usually here I'd try and personalize it with something I'd seen on the prospects sort of LinkedIn or and I think he had a very sort of bland profile. There was it just literally listed his job title. I probably could have done a little bit better with maybe looking into the company, trying to find some way to personalize the opening. That's probably an oversight on my part, really.
Yeah, and it's an easy thing. I think if you had said something like, "Hey, was researching the VAR 300, and actually, as it happens, we actually work with other companies on this list, which I think we do, like name dropping them, because that kind of brings some, if anything else, like validation and kind of market validation to him of like, oh, okay." Rather than it just sounded like, oh, I've researched your list and saw your name on it, and that's why I've called you. But again, it might be just one of those things that in the heat of the battle, you just kind of forget to do those things. Maybe his quite lukewarm response maybe impacted your kind of mindset on that call. It could be any number of things. We're gonna progress. We're gonna get to the bit here where the prospect starts really chucking his objections. Again, I think we've got about 40 odd people watching this right now. Again, if you've got any colleagues that you think would be super interested to hear like how Paul tries to deal with the not interested objection, tag them in the comments. Want to get as many people watching this and getting value from this as possible. Got some more good comments coming through. Jerry Hill says, "Silence is the game changer. Embrace the discomfort." It's like, from my perspective, only the real high caliber reps are comfortable with silence. Those who aren't will fill it because they feel that silence is like is doom. They have to talk. Greg Richardson says, "Feel like you need to get more to the point to keep the convo going if the prospect's downbeat." Very fair point. Sounds a bit like people who aren't ready for you to waffle on. Rory, Thomas got it sound a little forced though. Be interested to hear what you mean by little force. Just if you get a bit more context there, would be useful. But I think again, the key message here, Paul, is that I think you did a really good job of like tuning down your tonality to kind of match his. I'm gonna just jump forward to like this part of the talk track that you can see on screen here, where the prospect's actually talking, and you'll actually see that we actually get to the not interested bit in this call, but there's a bit of a way to go before we get there. But I'm going to play the bit when the prospect says, kind of gives his first rebuttal, if you like.
Okay, them really. Just wondering if you bump into either of those at all.
Not being funny, I'm sure every sales team does, and it's a good pitch. But I'm afraid I'm up against it, and I don't really have time to talk about it, and we think about that stuff all the time. So good luck. But I'm afraid I'm not in a position to have a conversation at the moment. I'm in the middle of a commission run, and I've got deadlines to meet. So,
wow. I mean, like, what was that? Like 20 seconds, and I think there was like about 5 or 6 different things you could analyze here. So, Paul, talk me through like some of the stuff that you were hearing there, because there was a lot there.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing he did say that it is the 2 problems I led with. It is something that they think about. That was the first thing that he then gave the classic, "I haven't got time for this at the moment. I'm busy." I think he said he was doing a commission run. So I think because he'd said that those problems were something that he faced, I think that led me to think that it wasn't worth giving up on this call just yet, really.
Yeah, no, I totally, like, what was super interesting. This is actually like what tends to happen when prospects give objections. Is what they end up doing is they don't generally just say, "I haven't got time," and that's it, or "I'm not interested." They usually pack it with lots of other stuff, and it's actually quite useful because in this case, as the prospect did, he actually said, "Listen, the problems that you've mentioned, like, we think about it all the time." Tim Hillman there says that's what he heard, and that's definitely what you hear, because that's why you don't give up on this call. And this for me is like, I just call these the emotive nuggets that you hear. Some salespeople would have just heard, "I'm busy, I haven't got time for this," and that's what they focus on. But they don't actually focus on the useful stuff that they pick up on. And anyway, in this situation, what happens next? Just to kind of jump forward, is that you do try and get more time. So I'm just going to play this bit of the call where you try and kind of get more time with him.
I see. I mean, when will be a good time to maybe reach out again, just to help to explain how we're helping similar technology leaders solve those problems through technology?
So I actually think, so first of all, at this stage, he hasn't actually said, I'm not interested. That's the key thing here. He's basically said, I haven't got time, but I've got those problems. And that's why I think you've said, right, okay, so when is a good time to talk specifically about those problems? And I really like the fact that you said that, Paul, like not say, when would be a good time to talk next? You said, when would be a good time to talk about how we're helping others solve those specific problems? Just by adding that little extra bit on makes it sound like there's a genuine reason why I'd want to put that time aside. But I just wonder here whether to reduce kind of resistance, because there is quite a lot of resistance in this call, whether you could be almost like super empathetic at this part of the call. It's like, oh man, it sounds like I've caught you at like just a terrible time right now. Or
yeah, I don't think I acknowledged his objection really. I think if I'd have acknowledged that he was short for time, maybe that it would have played out a little bit differently, and he may have given me a little bit more time as well.
As soon as someone says, "Oh, it sounds like I've just been the worst possible interruption right now," as soon as you kind of have that, almost like it's like people call like self-deprecation in some ways. Like immediately when you do that, prospects just chuck you a bone. You know what I mean? Like you've gone from being that just like, oh, that interruption to, yeah, at least Paul's like, he's really acknowledged my situation right now. And I just feel in those cases, sometimes prospects just take a little bit of a breathe, like they take a bit of a breathe out. They go from like head up to like just chucking every little bit of shit your way to just, yeah, Paul, you're right. It's just that time of the quarter of the month. And it just that can just take the heat out of the room. So like kudos for like trying to get that time and being specific about why you would want to talk at that time. But just it's amazing what happens when you just get on the prospect side, and that just that pressure. It's like a pressure chamber just relieves out of the room. I just want to know next from the audience, if people are in this situation right now, what would they do next? So they've heard from the prospect that really busy, we've got these problems. It's clear from the prospect's tone. I get the impression this prospect is super busy. That like trying to have a conversation with them right now would be, it's like it just wouldn't be a good chamber for having a good conversation. There's a lot of debate around like, oh, if someone says they're busy, like you should still try and get the meeting with them. Like, let's not have that mindset. Like, let's understand like who is genuinely super busy and who's just saying it just to get you off the phone. Like this guy, you can tell by his tonality, is genuinely sounds really busy. And I think that's the thing that people don't talk about, is there is a difference between someone who says they're busy and you can tell by what they're saying in the tone of the voice that that's true, versus people who aren't. So that isn't the case. How much do you buy into that, Paul?
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, the sort of excuse or the reason he gave for him being busy was he was doing a commission run. It was at the end of the month, so it just adds to that credibility. Really, he did sound genuine, and then I think that's why I think you're better off in that instance not pushing too hard to book anything there and then, and you are better maybe ringing back in a week's time.
Yeah. Right, let's jump forward then. We're getting to the bit where the prospect says not interested. Let's just listen to what happens next.
You know we're a technology business, don't you?
I do know you're a technology business, yeah.
To be honest, I'm trying to be polite about this, but I'm not really interested. I completely get the issues you're talking about. We have an improvement program which is running, and it is working. It's not working as fast as I'd like, but you've identified one of the issues, which is the people you are improving are human beings.
Yeah.
We're in a pandemic, which means it's more difficult to improve people at the moment. regardless of all the sort of soft fluff you see on LinkedIn. That's the truth of it, and we sort of know what we're doing at it. So again, good luck, good pitch.
Right, I'm just going to stop before the call ends. Again, so much in here. What's interesting here, Paul, is like he's gone from saying I'm super busy, and now he's saying I'm not interested. Which one of those things do you think is the? Do you think there's one of those that's more true than the other?
I think he's probably super busy. I think he's reinforced the problems that he has. He's saying that they're trying to fix them with an improvement program, but it's not working as quickly as they'd want. I think at this point of the call, if I remember rightly, I was more thinking now, what am I going to do next with this guy? I'm going to listen back to the call and maybe change tact, maybe send him an email. I think I actually sent him a video message by email, which he hasn't read, but he hasn't watched, but still, I think it was just a thing of an acknowledgement that I wasn't going to get anywhere on this call by pushing, really.
Yeah, and the key here is that this prospect has said enough in this conversation to hint that he has got some of the problems that we can help fix. We don't know the extent of those, but he has said, like, even in that specific talk track just that I played before, he did say things like, it's not where I need it to be. So this is where, when you hear someone that says not interested, what I'm reading this is actually he just doesn't. His biggest issue right now is he's super busy to talk about anything. Right? You could this call could have been about anything, and he still would have been the super busy person. Secondly, because of that, he hasn't had enough time to understand the value of what it is that we do truly. And I think that's when more times than not, when we hear a not interested, it's because people don't actually yet understand the value of what it is that we offer. When we get time with prospects, we have more time for them to see the value is the key message. Because you could have asked this guy 2 or 3 questions that could have he could have revealed lots of problems, lots of pain, but until you actually have that time with them, it's really difficult to get that. And I think this prospect was at this stage of the call just shutting you down to the point that he does pretty much hang up. So if let's imagine if you were going to do this call again, you said change tact? What would you have done in this call to change tact specifically to that could have maybe got you more time to explain the value, so that not interested wasn't even mentioned in this call?
Yeah, I think, like I say, if I'd have took a bit more time to prepare for the call, made it a bit more personal to him and his business, rather than leading with just 2 problems that he generally had, but what it didn't really deliver them in a hyper personalized way. And I think if I'd have managed to do that better, it would have maybe got his attention a little bit more, and he might have given us a little bit more time.
Yeah. Another bit of a tip from me to people watching this: when someone says not interested, but you're not getting rushed off the call, again, I feel like that self-deprecation I've used before really works. Then I feel like I've done a terrible job explaining what is it that we do, or how we help specifically people like yourself. Can I have another chance? And oftentimes, I've heard people say that. I've heard Stu say that on his calls, and prospects have said, "Yeah, sure, if it's brief." And he kind of reframes what he says. It has a different. Sometimes it has a different outcome. Sometimes it doesn't. But when you get not interested, more times than not, it's somebody that just has not processed the value. It does not understand the value of what you offer. And when you say, "I feel like I've done a terrible job of explaining how we help. Can you afford me another chance, another go?" Prospects are humans. Sometimes they will let you say, "Sure, go ahead." I've had it before. And you can just reframe it in a different way of saying, even like some storytelling of saying, "Oh, so that issue, or when that thing happens, and it's really annoying," and you kind of explain it in like a storytelling way, and it can just change the dynamic of the conversation. So a little bit of a tip: when you get not interested, when you're getting more time on the phone, simply use that self-deprecation is a big thing that can just give you more time with the prospects. More time equals more questions, equals more chance to build value, equals less chance of getting not interested, essentially. As far as this call's concerned, I think for my big takeaway is that this is a prospect that you're still have. There's still an opportunity here. He said enough in that call for you to think that at another time on another week, you could have had a different type of conversation with this guy. And I think more of an acknowledgement earlier on of like understanding of his situation, which is I'm super busy. It's end of the month. I'm doing all these tasks. Might have just got him on your side a bit more. So yeah, I'd say they're the takeaways. Someone to add on the follow up list. Someone to maybe try a different method. I mean, we know this guy picks the phone up, so he's definitely someone who's ripe for a call before the end of the year. And I genuinely think you could end up having a totally different outcome on this. Hugh Lawrence finally, as you said, the problem is he's too busy trying to solve the problem himself. He's not got the time to look at other solutions. What would you think of suggesting that given he's so busy, it's clearly not the right time? Maybe instead he's open to looking at options to help relieve that pressure in the future. He said, I think that's, if I've understood your comment correctly, Hugh, options is like options to speak again in down the line. I think that's what you mean. I think, Paul, at the end of this call, you do try and say, "Hey, is there a better time?" You don't give up because you're a true trooper. But I think by that point, the guy had already made his mind up. It was like this call was getting shut down. And this is just part of prospecting, isn't it? Like you catch this guy on a different time, a different day, and it could be a totally different outcome. I think too many people think, "Oh, this guy's just not interested. We should never speak with him again." The truth of the matter is, call this guy in 2 months. He might have chances are he won't even remember who you are.
Definitely not off the hook yet.
Yeah. And finally, Paul, wrap up. What would you say your key takeaways from this session?
I think it's definitely, like you say, is acknowledging is how to overcome that, is to basically acknowledge the objection that they've got and be more empathetic on the call, put yourself in their shoes and use that to your advantage. Like you say, that could have got me maybe 1 or 2 more questions and we could have maybe had a different outcome on that call after that.
Yeah. And you see on the insights there, you do only get the chance to ask 2 questions on this call. That was how it was how tough this call was. But yeah. Anyway, everyone should connect with Paul on LinkedIn. Truly, he's for someone to come on here. He's not afraid to put himself out there, having his calls listened to and critiqued from the audience. This is someone who wants to get better, and I'm sure he'd be delighted to connect with you on LinkedIn. Hopefully this was really interesting, really valuable for everybody. Please just put any thoughts or comments in the comments of how you found the session today. Any other objections you would like us to dig out some calls, and we'll see if we can do this again. But yeah, that's all from me, and it's all from Paul, I think.
Yeah.
Cheers, everyone.